Hi everyone and welcome to our second video in this series. In this video we're going to dive deeper into the existing model and existing domain that we already have to gather a deeper and better understanding.
Well, I want to start with the rider found station with available bikes.
Yeah.
I would like to understand what exactly happens, what information do we need to have available to actually, for a rider to start making that decision.
Wait, what you? I'm not sure what you mean exactly. I'm wondering. So again, we have the app, and
Mm-hmm.
in the app, the rider has it basically shows a map with all the stations. And if they share their location, it's going to pick the nearest. Yeah, it's going to show these are the stations with nearest availability. We probably both want to show we're probably only going to show stations with availability. And then if you click on a station with availability, you see how many bikes are available, and you see, or you probably also want to show the rate per minute for that station. Meaning that if there are like 2 or 3 stations nearby, that they can still make a decision on their own which station they want to pick.
Yeah. So and rating. You already showed the rates as
You
well.
have to if they click on it, it's probably not something that's going to go on the main screen. So just to be
So
clear, the green ones, that's a query, that you, yeah, okay.
yeah, because I think it's something like that. So the rider you show an overview of stations nearby with availability and rate, and then they actually, just pick a station.
Okay. Why do you put a rider here with the arrow like that?
To indicate that this is the persona that needs this information in order to make a decision.
Um, just as a question, why do you use that notation and not do something like this or something? What's the difference between the two?
Um, I always put the queries before the persona, because I feel that reads easier, and also because I want to indicate that a decision will come, and the decision actually comes after. So in that way, we have a better understanding of how this rider actually makes the decision. So first they need that information, and then you say something like pick station, and then that was selected. So that's sort of the flow that will happen for
Okay.
the rider.
Okay. Good enough. Yes. So I'll delete that one again. Okay. So I think we can delete the command for now because that's something we're going to later. So this is, we showed the overview of stations nearby with availability and rate. They found, they indeed found a station. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to in the end lead to an event, because we're not that interested in actually that they in the app click on a station. We're interested in, I want to, at some point they're going to say I accept the rate at this station and want to start a ride. So yeah, it's still, so that's one point. And the second thing that I probably see here, the rate per minute determined, that's all, it's already here. So that is something in the above one that's probably also, not correct anymore.
Yes. So then basically, they pick the station with available wall. If you say we're not really interested in that, I think, or we're not able to capture that at all.
We could probably implement it in the app that we capture it, but it's not that interesting of a deal because they can close it again and pick another station. For us, what's interesting is that they start to ride in, not necessarily that they clicked that station.
Yeah.
So I would probably just change this to an informational one, but this would be, these are the things that are actually happening, and this is something that happens in the head of the rider or maybe just on the app, but it's not something we're really interested in.
Okay. Yeah. I understand. At the same time, I think it's if it hadn't been there, then we wouldn't have understood, that we needed information because there are decisions to be made here. Which is why at first step you just put basically everything you hear on there. At least that's how I do it, and then I start digging a bit deeper on whether or not it's really something we want to capture, that we will capture, or is it something that's there because we need like certain queries or something like that, even though our system will not actually really capture this information.
Yeah. It's definitely like in the first iteration as domain expert, that sounded completely okay to me. But now that you start with queries, that's it's really not an action anymore. It's not the rider saying and they look at the app, and at some point indeed they are in the app going to select the station, but that's also like, hey, show me that station, and then there is the button. Do you want to start a ride here for this rate? And that's when it actually starts. That's the interesting thing. Okay.
So for me, I was thinking, you said, they can start a ride. A ride gets started by the station, not at a station. So it's the station that sort of...
No. That's not true. It's the rider in the app that says, I accept the price. Like it's going to have a button, start ride and the rate per minute is going to be there, but it's a rider that starts the ride, because the at station is also not correct. They can be somewhere else. It's totally not relevant that they're at the station at this point in time. They can be, and then probably most cases they will be at the station. So what's going to happen? They look at their app, they see a station nearby with availability. They're going to walk over there, and then they're going to open the app again and say, I start the ride. And then they scan the QR code, then the bike gets unlocked, and like the scanning and unlocking takes like 5 to 10 seconds in total. So in a normal case, the ride is going to have like 5 to 10 seconds longer duration than the actual riding time. But if they want, they can already do that from home as well.
Okay. But since they don't have to be at a station, I feel like we're missing something between rider started ride and QR code with CAD. I feel like, a bike should be, right? It should be made sure that when you arrive, a bike is actually there.
Yeah. If we say to the rider that that the ride was started, that they started paying, we're going to do our very best to make sure that there is a bike. So I would even say that the station needs to reserve internally a bike before we actually say, your ride started. Okay, so I would say that these need to go the other way around. I'm not saying that the station actually needs to pick a specific bike yet. For example, if there are 5 bikes available, the only thing the station needs to do is say, okay, now there are only 4 more bikes available. So it doesn't have to pick a specific bike. It just needs to make sure that there is a bike available for this particular ride. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then also what I did while you were talking is, so I said rider accepted rate per minute, which is sort of a synonym for me now as, rider started ride. But the ride was started and rider started ride for me are two separate things, because that station reserved bike for ride is actually in between there, and you said only then can a ride truly start.
What I mean for the rider, from the perspective of the rider, if we tell them your ride was started, we should not like 10 seconds later say, ah, no, sorry, there was no bike available. That is bad user experience. How we implement it, that's something we can change. But I do agree the way that it's written here is probably closest to what the actual rider expects.
Okay. And then barcode. You said there was a display there?
So yeah, the station has a display that shows a QR code. So it's not a sticker, because otherwise, yeah, you could, we don't actually know that you were there. I think, just to be clear, as a domain expert, these three feel that is how it's currently done. But the important thing actually is that a rider proved they are at the station. So I'm not sure if I'm interested in actually how they prove it. I'm just interested in the fact that they've proven it. So for me as a domain expert, I agree at some time when we want to look at how we're going to implement this, we will need to probably do this. But I'm also not saying that the QR code will be the only thing. Maybe in the future we're going to use GPS location or RFID scanning and so on. But the flow, the important part for the flow is that the rider proved that they're at the station.
Okay.
Should we remove these then, or do you want to keep them, or?
I want to keep them because you said it's how it's implemented right now.
Okay.
So I'll add a label with this. And I'll indicate with some arrow that rider proof they are at the station.
Okay.
That's actually what happens right now. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and so after that, it's definitely the station. Well, then the station unlocks the bike. I'm not sure. So we said here, at this point, we don't have a specific bike yet. And at this point, there has to be a specific bike. So I'm not sure if you want to make that, if you make that explicit by also adding events, or I'd probably now, not from my head of domain expert, but just designing, I would probably not write it down yet, because that feels like a design decision already on how we're going to implement it. The only thing we know so far, the requirements are, at this point in time, we need a specific bike. At this point in time, it's not decided yet. When is the station going to pick a specific bike? That is something the domain expert is not really interested in. So that's going to be really a design decision we need to make. And personally, I would not make that yet, because I feel like maybe we don't have the necessary information yet, or it's going to depend on other things as well.
All right. Yeah. I agree with that. And then the rider picked up bike.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm wondering, like we say, station unlocked bike.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ever go wrong?
The unlocking should only go wrong for technical reasons, and yeah, when a lock is broken, for example, or a slot where the bike is parked is broken, that can go wrong.
Yeah.
But if we're thinking about things that can go wrong, there are other stuff that can go wrong already. Here the station reserved the bike. Maybe that wasn't possible. Maybe someone at the same time. We only had one available bike at that station, so someone else could have picked it. So yeah, we could at that point. That could have failed as well. There are some other failure conditions, but they're more complex in the sense that, like, what happens when a lot of time takes between the ride was started and the rider proved that they're at the station. What happens when the unlocked happened correctly, but the rider didn't pick up the bike? But I think those are things we might need to look at a bit later.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
No, that's good. I am, however, going to write it down.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I see we will need some mechanisms within the system to make sure that, if the bike is never picked up, what happens? And
Yeah,
things
and then
like that.
I'll add this here. A long time between ride started and rider proved they're at the station.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then, time goes by again.
Yes. And well, yeah, then the bikes return to the station. The station locked the bike. That can, of course, also fail. The ride was stopped. So the locking part is interesting in the sense that that's also stops their ride, meaning that if that fails, their ride is not going to be automatically stopped. What we do try to, when you put your bike back in, you're going to normally get we're going to notify, hey, your ride was stopped and this was the price. And the slots in the station also have I mentioned the light. So when you put it back in, the light is going to blink or something so that you can see it actually worked. Or maybe it blinking red when it didn't lock correctly. So we are going to give some indication to the rider that their ride and that the placement was actually correct. But there is also the potential case here that the rider puts back their bike, that it fails somehow and that they don't know about it, so that their ride keeps running. So we will also need to be able to handle that, but that's probably a case that might need to be handled manually or something by customer support.
Yep. I'm curious, like you say, bike returns to station. The station locked bike and the ride was stopped.
Yes.
Is this the right order? Because you said the ride was...
it could probably be simultaneously or even the other way around. The thing though what happens, or what I think now, that's how you design it, of course. The station, you need to think the station has its own hardware and software to communicate with all the slots. So when a bike is returned to the station, that means someone puts that bike in a slot. The station, the hardware notifies the station still all locally. It notifies that, and the station is immediately going to send out a lock that slot, and it's also going to send out to the server that write can be stopped now, or maybe it even sends out a write was stopped. I don't. Yeah, that's going to be how we implement it. So the order of these two events is more, again, a design decision, I think. But the station can definitely react, and well, design decision and maybe also a business decision. But for now, I think as domain expert, I'm okay with that. As soon as the station detects that a bike is returned to the station, the write can be stopped. As long, of course, as that the locking also happens as soon as possible. So that that means that the bike is probably going to be locked before you get a notification, because for the notification to happen, the station needs to send information to the server, and the server needs to send the notification to your phone. Okay.
Yeah. I'll just leave it that. I added the remarks, by the way, every time. It's very interesting that some of this will happen locally at the station, because the station, it is hardware and has its own software running. This is something we should keep in mind.
Yeah. Just to be clear, we can assume that the station is going to be like online all the time. That doesn't mean like maybe sometimes it will be like offline for 5 or 10 seconds. But if the station goes offline for a longer period of time, we're probably also going to get the station offline from the app. So the station is going to have a heartbeat to the back end to know that it's still functioning. The reason for that is, of course, that the station needs to say what bikes are available. A short downtime, though, is not necessarily an issue, because the rate is calculated on the back end. The station doesn't manage the rate at all. It just needs to know that, so it needs to know that that ride was started, of course. If it doesn't have that information, it cannot hand out a bike. So if it's offline for 10 seconds, that's probably okay. If it's offline for like 10 minutes, then no one is going to be able to start a ride there, because the station doesn't know about the started rides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So there are some other cases like in between. Are you interested in those, or do you want to move forward?
Let's first go forward, and then we can actually dig deeper into that, because there's a lot happening here.
The other cases I'm talking about now, I really like during the ride, like what happens if you have a flat tire, what happens if you crash. I think some of them are not useful to model, others might be useful.
Car accident. They can abandon the bike.
There are lots and lots of scenarios. I don't think all of them are useful to model, but I think some are, because we say, okay, the station gives an available bike, and it unlocks it. But what if when you want to pick up your bike, you see at that point that you have a flat tire already? That's something
Okay.
different than when you get a flat tire when you're driving for 10 minutes, for example. So that those kinds of things need to, or well, a flat tire, or maybe the brakes are broken, or maybe something else is broken. Basically, the bike that the station assigned to you is not, ready, or is broken or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so if we move back to the end, so when the when the ride was stopped, the price can be calculated and credits can be deducted. Of course, the obvious error cases here are that you don't have enough credits available to pay for your ride, and in that case, what we do is we're going to ask the rider to buy a new bundle. If they do that, everything's okay. If they don't want to do it, for example, because they say I'm not going to use Sharingo any longer, then we can just also give them an invoice for the balance that they can pay immediately, and they end their account as well. If they don't buy a bundle like right away, that means, of course, they cannot start new rides without them actually buying a bundle first. So when you start the ride, you at least need to have a positive saldo of credits.
Okay. I'm going to put that in a different color.
Okay.
I'm going to create a bit more space as well.
Go ahead, and then I'll move it and make space on the front as well.
Okay, so we went over the existing EventStorm again, and we dug a bit deeper into every part. As you look at the end result, you might have noticed that not many post-its actually were added to that, but that's okay, because the mental models of the domain expert and the software developer actually got expanded a lot by doing this. So in the next video, we will actually start digging deeper and adding a lot more post-its, and we'll see you there.